because I assume that dropped out when you left.
Yeah, sure did. We have a very good recording of everybody's face frozen, so we've got that going for us.
I didn't even realize. Good catch, Eric. I would have recorded, but I didn't even catch that.
You probably wouldn't be able to. What I should do next time is make somebody a co-host in case that happens. Then they can do that.
It automatically shunted over to Stephanie as host, and so I don't know.
Oh, good.
How it decided to do that, but
It knew
Magic.
Stephanie had all the power.
I had all the power, but I didn't use it. Oops. So Chief Jenkins, we didn't hear what the rest of what you were saying. Dr. Macon talked about the book that everyone's going to be reading and that everyone has to attend, and talked about that. Did you want to say anything else of what we're planning to do about the summit coming later that we would like to do?
Yeah, I think we talked about having a format where we would start off talking about what things the police department has been doing and is doing, and our current training and protocols and policies. And then the next part would be like a listening session to hear what the community wants from the police department and where they think there are gaps. And then the third part would be perhaps breaking into small groups to try to develop some action items and then come together as a big group to finalize action items.
So the reading summit is in September, is that correct? I know that's not the correct title of that.
Yeah, the common reading will be, I believe we finalized it, right, Chief Jenkins? So it'll be in September.
I would open my calendar, but it would probably shut down my computer, so I won't.
And then what we're planning the BLM summit in November, is that what we're thinking?
That is what I had to leave the meeting early, but that is what I remember looking at, the November timeframe.
Yeah,
so
we definitely would have to wait and see what it looks like, whether we're going to look at virtual or in person, till we get maybe a little bit closer to that time period.
Right. So I would like to propose a smaller subcommittee to work on this and get this all planned out, working with Dr. Macon to get this up and rolling and all the different logistics that we need, especially if it will be virtual or in person. So we'll need to plan 2 different events and then choose based upon what we can and cannot do to going forward. So I will have Darby send an email out to everyone to see if they are interested in helping with this little subcommittee to put this on, and then we will get planning on everything. But does anybody have any questions or comments?
You know, I'll just add one more thing, that the person who made the contact with us as part of the Movement for Black Lives was Anthony Haynes, and really brought it in a very positive manner, and is genuinely interested in moving forward in a positive way and working collaboratively with the police department. So I really appreciated that, and so I think that will definitely help our chances of really achieving something together.
Yeah, and one of the things that was mentioned also, we discussed, was the community, and how our community is not only our citizens here that live here permanently, but also our rotating students, that this is their community as well. So we definitely want to have them feel that this is their community and we want to hear their voice. So this will be fun. It will be exciting, and so I'm looking forward to working with you, David, and getting this up and running and started.
My pleasure. I think it'd be interesting to also, engage these high school students in that conversation as well. So it's going to be different, right? Like thinking about how we operate, what public safety looks like, including COVID, right? So we know high school is going to be different. And with it, it's going to come different challenges, and how they engage and how they interact. And maybe, thinking about having that, the presentation we had about safe, responsible internet communications, again, might be important, maybe not for us as a group, but maybe something directed at the students. So they're hearing that from another perspective. Yeah, I think that's certainly something to be thinking about.
Yeah.
And Isabella, I saw that great enthusiasm coming from you. You want to help with this committee, so I really need you jumping right on that. All right, if there isn't anything else on that, if you have any questions or anything, or if you want to reach out, feel free to contact us. I will have Darby send out an email to the council to see who is interested in being part of the subcommittee. So the next step on our new business is our police department update. Chief Jenkins, tell us everything what's happening.
All right. So we are working on our budgets at the moment. It will be a 2-year budget for 2021 and 2022. And currently we've been asked to keep our budget amounts similar to what our amended budget has become during COVID-19, which is severely cut budgets. Well, I have 4 vacancies right now that I'm not able to fill. We've cut all non-essential operational expenditures. We're doing just what we have to do, required to do as far as training goes. So this is going to be a challenge moving forward. And I think the plan is that we're going to continue to monitor city revenues. And if we see a change in what they project the trend to be, in other words, our sales taxes start to return to something that is close to normal, then we can make some changes to our budgets then. But for now, we have to move forward with a very restricted budget. We do have 2 officers in the academy, which we're authorized 33 sworn, and their numbers 28 and 29 of our 33, and that's Joseph Guile, who is due to graduate September 11th. And then Jared Hulk is due to graduate November 20th. Some training that we have been doing has been online training, and that officers can do while they're working. So the only cost really is if we have to pay for the training itself, and then they're able to, we don't have any overtime costs or travel costs for that training. We were able to get a discounted rate on some implicit bias training. That was excellent training it was put on by a company called Caliber Press that does a lot of law enforcement training. Excellent training. And so we made it mandatory for all of our people to do that training. Dr. Macon already talked about the common reading. Yeah, I have the date written down here as September 15th tentatively at 4 p.m. And so that should be good. Coming up, there is going to be a Pullman Town Hall virtual meeting on Wednesday, August 5th at 1 p.m. And that will include the mayor, the police and fire chiefs. And I believe WSU President Schultz will be there. And if he's not, his VP of Marketing Communications, Phil Weiler, will be there, or both of them will be there. And so that's really to talk about where we are with COVID-19, things that we're doing, that we're working together, and some projections that we have for the near future, and to answer any questions that people have.
What was that date again?
Wednesday, August 5th at 1 p.m. And we'll be pushing information out. Wait a minute, that can't be correct. That must be, well, let me check the calendar on my phone.
None of us know what day it is today, much less, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great town hall that you all missed. So let's see here. Well, the 15th is the common meeting. I will have to get the town hall. Oh, here we go. No, that's not here, sorry. I will send information out to everyone later tonight, tomorrow. Sorry. And go ahead.
All right, thank you, Chief Jenkins. Is there any comments or questions? One of the questions that I had for you, Chief Jenkins, is the budget. Do you foresee of any, I know we are a very small community, but do you foresee any issues that you're not able to fill those positions?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Do you foresee any issues with your budget cuts for the, the safety of the community and stuff?
Well, it's definitely going to be challenging. We actually were recently authorized 3 additional positions that we've never really had. So we're pretty close to the staffing that we have been used to. So it's not really like we're operating with cut staff. Those are additional staff we just haven't been able to add for the most part. The biggest challenge I see really is with the training part of it. Law enforcement training is, in my opinion, what separates excellent, well-trained, competent, professional departments from those that are not. And there's also some critical skills that can be lost without regular training. And so I'll be working with the city administrator and the finance director to figure out ways where we can continue that critical training so that our officers do maintain those critical skills, and that we can have training to maintain a highly professional and skilled department.
Chief Jenkins, are you thinking about, just given budgetary constraints and how they're likely to be pressing for many years, a train the trainer type of program?
Yeah, I mean, we try to take advantage of train the trainer programs as much as we can. So we have a lot of in-house trainers for particularly like the critical skills like firearms and taser, all of those use of force that can have high liability, that where officers need to have regular training to maintain their skills. So we do have in-house trainers for those, and some weaponless defense or defensive tactics, even things like our portable breath tester. We have in-house trainers for that. So so we do try to do that as much as we can, and just being where we're located in Eastern Washington, our ability or our resources are limited as far as having some training that's close by. Really, our closest regular training would be in Spokane area, unless we bring someone here, and even that is somewhat limited. Otherwise, we have to go to Seattle area. So just because of that, we try to develop in-house trainers whenever we can, because it does save us the cost of overtime and backfill and that type of thing to get someone to travel. So we ask as much as possible.
I wonder if something to be thinking about, particularly when you go to the city council to have those conversations, is developing, I've seen other agencies that do this, is essentially getting like it's not a Google Classroom, but like a management system where you can have trainings embedded, where you can develop your own training through your organization, and then cycle them through. You keep developing them. You have refresher courses for, like, you just had this de-escalation. Well, have someone assign some hours to developing an actual structure to it, so that other officers could go through it. Smaller agencies have to do this, and it's a way to expand your training opportunities, while also minimizing your overall cost. But an additional benefit of something like this is that when you have to it's like prepping to teach a course. If you have to teach someone how to make a grilled cheese, right? Like, you have to deconstruct all the components to it. Today she made rice, good rice for the very first time. Gotta tell you that. But going through all the steps, gotta wash the rice. You gotta make sure it's clear liquid. You gotta, but once you do that and you have it saved and there's a structure, you can just keep putting people through those refreshers, and then it's not just institutionalized, but it's a really easy way of using that management system to actually, you can check, did they do it? How long? Who's up for that refresher? And we can get that cycling through. Yeah, might be something to think about.
Yeah.
And then I would like to jump in it too. This is Kanitra. I'm scared to turn my screen on because I'm scared I'll be kicked out. But to that point, if you could make those lessons somewhat transparent to where young people that you're trying to recruit can also get on those lessons, then they too can start learning the way the system works. And that way, when you interview, the ride-alongs are great. But when we get to the interview process, it doesn't always translate. So if you can make these lessons available to them, they may be able to speak to you during the interview in a way that you weren't prepared for. So that would be my thoughts.
No, absolutely. Like, you think about something like use of force, like so often people don't know, one, what it actually looks like. Like what is appropriate force? We've shown videos to, I mean, we just did one where we showed almost 100 different videos, and by and large people thought it was all inappropriate. You go, no, many of those were within policy. These are all things we found on YouTube, so not just like Pullman's data, right? But I think that that's, to Kenisha's point, that's so critical that sometimes people don't understand what de-escalation is, or what a proper use of force is, or what are the steps for, you know, a proper, you know, breathalyzer or field sobriety test. That is, you design those because this is what you train your officers to do. That there's also something that there's a dual benefit of this, because you can absolutely share that out, make it available. You can even have students or have people go through it and say, you always wanted to have a citizen police academy, right? Like the first thing you talked about when you came here and we met, right, in like your first month was, I want to have this. This literally could be a component of that citizen police academy. And as you develop it for officers, you're developing it for citizens and vice versa. So.
Absolutely.
I like it. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions for Chief Jenkins? All right, thank you very much for that wonderful update. Next up is our constituencies poll. I will just open the floor to any of our committee members if you have anything to report.
APAC is doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee this year. We are starting it out, so we are in our infancy, but we would like to partner with the Black Lives Matter movement and the conference, and in any other way that you see that we could be useful to you.
Kenitra, wonderful, thank you. Definitely send me an email so we can make sure that we coordinate with that.
Absolutely.
Anybody?
From College Hill, students are not necessarily personally distancing, but it's still quiet and pleasant on the hill. And I just wanted to report that College Hill Association typically has an annual barbecue, which we were unable to do, but we did have an annual drive-by socially distanced ice cream social in McGee Park last week, and we had overall about 30 people show up, and Chief Jenkins was there, and the College Hill beat officer Andre St. Love was there, and he visited with everybody and was there the entire time, so we really appreciated his presence.
He's going to be awesome, just saying.
Love St. Andre. Got it the wrong way first, but yeah, he's going to be great.
Isabella, anything about the school that you'd like to talk about?
I was just saying this to my father. So students, Pullman Public Schools are going back in 2.5 weeks from today, which is, we have 2 options. One is like a halfway plan where they go to like 2 days of school and the rest online, and then just full online. Then we have a safe startup, I believe, online. Yeah, for schools. So we're being safe about it.
So I have a question for that, and maybe this committee, someone might have the answer to this. But so the school called and asked about what parents were going to do. One of the things that I brought up was, how are the buses going to be handled? So again, thinking about equity. So I'm in a position where I can just pick my kids up because I have to work from home. I'm required to. So that's not a big deal for me. But nobody seems to have the answer about how the public buses and the school buses are going to operate if they're in that flex model in situations where parents cannot get their kids. Because when the school normally has the buses, there's times in which there's so many kids, they actually can't get all of them on the bus. So I'm curious in terms of an equity issue for the members in Pullman, parents, how does that work? How are they planning that? Has any been thought? The response when I asked it was, we hadn't thought about that yet. And that seems problematic given we're 2 weeks out and we haven't heard a definitive answer on how that's going to be handled.
And you can't have safe social distancing on buses.
Very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. I cannot answer that at all. I'm able to find you an answer for the Pullman City buses, but I don't know about the yellow buses, the actual real school buses. I do know that they are doing, for the city buses at least, I do know that they are doing, practicing safe distancing on the buses. But Chief Jenkins, do you know?
I don't know, but we could send the question to one of our police advisory committee members, Joe Thornton, and see if he has an answer for us.
I think a lot of parents, and I've had parents ask about that. Are they going to run multiple bus routes? Do we have the budget to actually run multiple routes? Right? I mean, these are all these kind of competing issues, right? I mean, if we're going to have social distancing, we have to have less people on the bus, which means we have to run more bus routes. And so we have the resources to be able to do that. And I think it's just an equity issue, right? For those of us that can go pick our kids up, that's not an issue. But for those that can't, I mean, I'm very concerned that we haven't put a lot of thought, or maybe there's been a lot of thought, there just hasn't been as much communication.
I will pose that question and send out the answer I get.
Thank you, Chief Jenkins. Yeah, David, that's a really great question. I mean, I take my kids to and from school, so they don't have to ride the bus, but there's a lot of students that do. So that's a really important question to get answered. Any other constituencies would like to report? No?
Stephanie, is there going to be a Q&A? I'm sorry, it's been so long. Everything goes together. Is there going to be a Q&A session at the end of this?
We can definitely have a Q&A session if you would like to ask a question, Kanitra.
I would like to at the end if it's possible.
You can now ask your question now if you'd like.
I have two. The first one was, we were projecting at the beginning of this COVID to have 60% student capacity on campus. And so from what we're starting to experience is what's happening in Pullman and what's happening on campus is vastly different. So there is approximately, these are not official numbers. I am not the official spokesperson. I just want to have a general conversation about the possibility of only being at 14% capacity on campus, which means there's going to be a lot of students returning who need employment. Dining services used to be one of the biggest student employers. I don't know that we can be that this semester. And then with them still having the fees conversation on hold, UREC is the second largest student employer. One of my fears is that you're going to have more people, students particularly, needing employment than is available. So can this committee brainstorm to figure out how to keep students employed? Or maybe it's a different committee, and does anybody have any advice for that? And then for the Black Lives Matter Summit, I was trying to get in, but I would like to talk about how we didn't really talk about racism or white supremacy. We talked about policing and the practices of policing, which is not bad, but those two are really interwoven. And so in that Black Lives Matter Summit, is there going to be a conversation about how policing got to where it is today? And then how do we one, separate Pullman out, because I think Pullman does an outstanding job of not following everyone else's suit. And then secondly, how do we get Pullman Police and Pullman community to get the same results out of other police departments, so we're doing excellence and not just enforcement? Was that a lot?
No, those were great questions, Kenitra. I am not sure about the student. Perhaps Chief Jenkins or anybody else would like to comment about that. I don't know. I do know that there's a lot of students that have returned, and some students will need employment, but there, like you said, Kenitra, there isn't a lot of employment here in Pullman at the moment, with everything being virtual and kind of shut down. Chief Jenkins, do you have anything to want to say?
I would say that WSU Student Services, that would kind of fall under their area. I've been invited to regular meetings that they have had with community landlords to discuss the housing situation and students. And I know that they're looking at a lot of different impacts to students that are coming back to Pullman under the current circumstances. And so that's where I would say they may have already done a lot of work on this. So I would kind of throw that into their court and see if they already have done some work or put some thought into this already.
It has a public safety component, right? I mean,
Yes.
There's a reason there's that idiom, right? You know, idle hands are the devil's plaything. I think that when you have, students that have needs and they're not able to meet those needs. I mean, one of the things that, just thinking now, we might start tracking are some of those crimes that really, they're not nuisance related crimes, or it's not necessarily just low level crimes, but those types of crimes that are really about meeting needs. So we might want to just track those, but we don't know how many students come back, right? So there's a lot of things that we have to figure out, but it's a good question. Just how do we get resources to students so they know what's available?
Well, another part to add on to to do this +1 is, like, we're not allowed to hire full-time staff right now. And so how do we supplement? Are there jobs that students can do? Are there jobs? Is there community policing? Is there community opportunity that students can do to be the mouthpiece for us, so that we're not having to constantly go out there and interact? They can interact for us.
And those are good questions, Kenitra. It's a hard subject with everything that's going on right now.
To the BLM question, we are. I think so. With the at the common reading, we're going to be talking about it. I'm doing an hour-long lecture for Roots that's going to be about history and why it's so important. And I think at the BLM Summit in November, we need to talk about it, and people need to understand where many of these issues stem from. When we talk about over-policing, why it is that some areas get over-policed and underserved, and why that is. So yeah, I think that to that point, absolutely. I think it needs to be embedded and interwoven in what we're talking about. We talk about aspects of intersectionality in policing, but at its core, there's always been a marginalized group that's not serviced, right? They're the product, and we need to change that. Pullman's been great. It doesn't treat its people, certain segments of the population, as a product to be over, policed and always under the watch and guard. But you're right. There are other areas that don't. I mean, they truly are brutal in the way in which they interact and treat, and that's unacceptable.
I agree, David. And one of the things that I would like for this summit is to be able to have, both discussions and a safe place for people to come and ask questions and bring up concerns that they would like in a respectful and safe place, so that people feel like they can actually discuss and have open communications. So Kenitra, one of the things for this committee that I'm hoping that we can get started pretty quickly is to bring those suggestions, and then we can start mapping up what we want to have this summit to feel like and bring to, and who we want on the panel and discussions. And those are things that we need to discuss. All right, is there anything else for the questions? Any public comment?
I found the date and time of the town hall. It is
Yay!
Wednesday, yay, Wednesday, August 19th at 3 p.m.
Perfect.
So that's a week from this coming Wednesday.
Wonderful. Where is that being broadcasted out so we know like where the links are to join? Where do we find that?
I don't think those have been published yet,
Okay,
but I will push them out as soon as they're available.
great. Thank you.
So Jennifer, I haven't looked at the survey results yet, but I do have a question about, so we've seen other states and even other cities implement fines when they get into the red, you know, in terms of the COVID risk levels. I guess it's kind of two parts here. One is, if that were to be implemented, would you enforce that? Two, how do you believe your officers or community members would feel about having citations for not abiding by the mask requirement and the social distancing?
So I don't know that I understand your first question.
So if cities have the option to do that and we were to decide, how do you think your officers would feel about, and would you support a policy in which we were fining people for not wearing masks?
Well, we currently are working with Washington State University Police Department and the Whitman County Prosecuting Attorney's Office on a response plan to address issues that may occur as more students return with violations of gatherings and social distancing. And it follows our current approach where we first educate and warn. And so far we've had good luck with compliance by following that. But however, if we do have those who essentially refuse to comply, knowingly and deliberately refuse to comply, we do plan to forward charges to the prosecuting attorney's office. These plans, I'm still waiting for a final sign off from the prosecuting attorney, but we did have a discussion, and so far, I think, at least during our discussion, philosophically, he was on board with it. So I just need to wait to have that finalized. But that is likely going to be what our plan is going to look like. And you know, it does put our staff in a difficult position. So that's something that we're going to have to work with our staff on. I'm already hearing from different segments of the community that they're seeing violations from the students who have already returned. And I think Barbara maybe referenced that when she was talking about College Hill in particular. So we've already started to see some of that. And the governor's approach so far also has been he does not want enforcement to be the first step. He wants enforcement to be the absolute last resort. And so, and we've been implementing that in the spirit that the governor presented it. And I think that is still the case, but we are in somewhat of a unique situation with students returning and then not having classes, in-person classes to attend. And so, so we're going to have to wait to get a final sign off from the prosecuting attorney, and then we're going to have to work with our staff to make sure that we have everyone on board with that plan. And Washington State University Police is doing the same. Does that answer your question?
Oh, no, it does. I think it's just thinking about, you know, forward issues and what we've seen in other cities where there have been disagreements between they're authorized to, but the agency is deciding not to. So I was just curious to hear your thoughts. And so I appreciate that you answered the question. It's tough. It's a tough place to be in.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, unless something's popped up, our next meeting is September 14th. We will be sure to get the information about the school buses, both yellow and the transit. If we get an answer, if Chief Jenkins gets an answer, we'll send that out. Sending out the minutes, and we'll also send an email out to see if anybody who is interested in joining the committee so we can start planning our summit. And if you have anything questions, please feel free to reach out. And other than that, have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of August. For our high school students joining us, enjoy your first day of classes. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
See you later.